Hi, I'm Ralph Preston. Tuesday, well, it's not morning. Usually we do this at 11 a.m., but today we're doing it at 12:15 to accommodate our guest schedule. And that is our Tuesday Stroke Buddies, Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. And we try and bring on different people to share knowledge mostly. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mentor programs with two different Judys. First, we have Judy Crane, who was involved in the Power of Two mentor program. I met her 6 or 8 months ago. And then we also have Judy Johnson on a parallel track. I met her probably better part of a year ago. I noticed how hard she was working, and coming out of her living room, going through the kitchen door was the first video I think I ever saw of yours.
That's right.
I got visual recall. Anyway, I started commenting, and ultimately I ended up coaching her some. And I like the mentor program idea. And so I'd asked Judy Crane to come on and talk about the Power of Two. But I did so while I was like on a 3-week trip in May, and I had limited access. I was working with 2 stroke survivors full-time every day in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was not the right time. Anyhow, I circled back just a few months later in September or so, and here we are. But before here we are, there's something really cool about all this. So I knew that both of them lived in Maryland, and I like this idea of a mentor program enough that I would consider making a video on it to make it easier for other hospital systems to implement it, because hospitals will do things if you make it easy for them, and they'll tend not to if they have to reinvent the wheel. So that's my idea. So I started talking about a video with Judy Crane. And then one time I was chatting with Judy Johnson, I said something like, I was always wanting to come up and walk her with a gait belt because she was so close to lots of things. She still is, because she works hard. When you work hard, you stay close to making improvement all the time. Anyway, I wanted to come up there and walk her on a gait belt. I said, well, maybe if I come up and make a video on the Power of Two. I said, you ever heard of it? And she said, ever heard of it? I'm in it. And I'd mentioned Judy Crane's name, and she said, and Judy Crane's my mentor. And I said, right then and there, I said, okay, Ralph, you know what you have to do. So now here we are. So I was just going to start, well, this is a long introduction. Anyway, I was just going to start by asking Judy Crane first, and then Judy Johnson, to just tell us a little bit about their stroke in terms of how far they are out, what they dealt with, what they're dealing with now, that kind of thing. So Judy Crane, why don't you start?
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I do, it's a privilege to be here, to be able to talk with you all. And as I know everybody has their own story, and mine started actually, now it was 18 years ago. I actually woke up one day and I was in medical sales, and all of a sudden I had a sharp pain in my chest, like somebody had put a knife through my chest. And the lucky thing is that I had a phone right beside on my desk, and I called 911, and that was the first thing that saved my life that day. I ended up having a aortic dissection. And they took me to the local hospital, and then they threw me right back into the ambulance and took me up to University of Maryland. And luckily, I got through that surgery. And I ended up in the hospital for about 30 days, but I ended up having 4 surgeries in 8 days. And the last surgery, I actually had a stroke on the table. So even though the aortic dissection was the big thing that happened to me, I had more problems with the stroke because I lost my right side, but I was very, very lucky to be able to start moving it within 48 hours. But my speech was a whole nother story. I had significant aphasia, and it was a long road. And I did about a year worth of speech therapy, and I wasn't ready to be discharged, but as we we get discharged. And so now what are we going to do? So I realized then I needed to be the director of my life. It's not about everybody doing things to me, about what I can do. And so I ended up putting myself into every research study that would have me. I found a aphasia center in Baltimore. When it was even it was still on the page. It wasn't even built yet. But I said I had to be a part of that. So I started doing things with them as well. With all that said, I just kept myself out there. But one of the things that was really missing in the whole thing was that I wanted to be able to talk to other people that had been down a similar path. I was 47 years old. I had two children, one in middle school and one in high school. And they're vulnerable ages anyway. Not being able to write, read, or talk very well, it was hard. So I needed to be able to connect with somebody. And I'm gonna say one more thing, and I will never ever forget my speech therapist connected me with somebody on the phone that had aphasia, and we sat there and we talked. Now imagine, we both have pretty bad aphasia. And so you can imagine what the conversation was, but we could relate to each other, and we cried together and we laughed together. And I thought, oh my gosh, we don't have to do this alone. We can do this together. We can learn so much from each other. So that's why this day is doing all the things that I do in the mentor program.
Great. I would let Judy go first, but actually something similar happened with, not with me personally, but I put it together. I noticed I have to let people in the groups, and I sometimes notice where they live, because I look and see if somebody lives within a couple hours of me. I'll send them a message and say, I could visit you, coach you, help you in person, kind of thing. I just happened to notice these two gals in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I connected them. And I do this a lot. I throw the spaghetti against the wall, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't stick. Anyway, that's another discussion. And it sucked this time, even though they're 22 years apart in age. And I didn't know at the time that they had the same kind of stroke, that they both had dysarthria, which is another language issue, different than aphasia. That's another discussion too. But ultimately, they ended up texting each other for a long time. And then one of them decided that they should do a word every day. And so they started texting each other words. Then I accidentally butt dialed one of them. Neither one of them would talk to me because they were embarrassed. And I'm fine with that, because I don't push anybody. And I'm not here to make anyone uncomfortable. But one day I butt dialed Stormy, and she picked up the phone. And I'd worked with a gal who had a cerebral stroke here, and it had dysarthria. And so I could understand her, and we were both surprised. Shortly after that, and I asked each of them, neither one could remember who called the other one first, but they started talking on the phone, and they did the word a day live on the phone. And then they would also pick up magazines and things and read to each other. And it's just wonderful what happened. And that, it's now almost 2 years later, and they continue that. And both of them both of them's language has improved significantly. One of them can call the doctors now and make her own appointments and that kind of thing. Even if you haven't had a language issue, if you've dealt with other things, like the first time you put back your hair or tied your shoes or something, you know what kind of an accomplishment that is, to be able to feel comfortable enough to speak in public. Yeah. So anyway, sorry to interrupt the flow, but I just thought that's fascinating. I want to have classes. I had this idea a year ago, and I just paid for the second year. I've got speechyoga.org and speechyoga.com. I want to do it like a yoga class. You go and you move. Why can't you go with an SLP, speech and language pathologist, for those who don't know, and do like a speech class? Anyway, Judy Johnson, I'm not trying to steal your thunder. I just thought that was interesting based on what Judy Crane said. So Judy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? You're more newly minted and still working.
Instead of 17 years ago, my stroke was 17 months ago. I was working out at 8:30 in the morning with my personal trainer, which I had been doing for a couple of years. And it was very strange because my left foot went to sleep. That's what it felt like. And that feeling moved up my left side. So right away, my personal trainer called an ambulance. The ambulance, in fact, broke down on the way to the hospital. They had to call another ambulance, which is just crazy. Like Judy Crane, they also took me to University of Maryland, which has on the 25th floor their stroke unit. I got to know the area well, too well.
Not
but, so the hospital was wonderful. The medical treatment was wonderful, but like a lot of other stroke victims or stroke survivors, they send you on your way. And like Ralph likes to say, I figured out pretty quick that the Cavalry was not coming. So I think we all kind of reach our own conclusion, like Judy said, that we have to become our own advocate. We have to be in charge of our recovery, which we all know lasts much longer than our time in the hospital or even a couple of months. I didn't realize it was a lifetime venture, but I think I know now that this is going to be a lifetime venture. So that's pretty much my story. I had a hemorrhagic stroke. It affected my left side. So I have left side weakness. And I'm still in physical therapy, occupational therapy. And I guess, still finding really sources. So like Judy, Ralph.
I'm doing very well, by the way.
Yes.
And
thank you very much.
I went through the same thing. I thought, well, first, when you're in the hospital, you're laying around. I had my stroke on my exercise bike training for the senior game. So I'm laying around the hospital. I'm thinking I can't walk. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll do the senior games. I can't walk, so I probably shouldn't enter the running events, but maybe I could ride my bike. Yeah, sure. I did go back to riding my bike, which everybody said, you shouldn't be able to do that. And I said, I'm glad you weren't there today. I threw my leg over. Anyway, it took 10 months. But we're all delusional in the beginning about just get me home and I'll go back to my, regular life. And it's not the way it works. And about a year or so out, I realized it was a lifetime commitment. And you know what? I'm okay with that because we all age. Yeah. We all need to work out. We all need to do various types of therapy, stroke or no stroke. I decided the same sort of thing, that it was a lifetime commitment. I don't spend a ridiculous amount of time on it, but I'm aware of it. I do like yard work actually as therapy, because you move every type of muscle imaginable when you're picking things up and raking and wheelbarrowing and shoveling and burning and trimming bushes, all of which I did yesterday. Anyway, and I changed the name of my motivational speech to "In for the Long Haul," to basically indicate that it's a long haul. One of the things I do is try and educate people about, that's why I make up these things like the cavalry's not coming, easy to remember things to try and imprint things into, try to make a blueprint in people's brains so that they think about these things, being their own patient advocate, a lot of this stuff. Anyway, a lot of you have heard this before, so I won't take up our precious time with that. Next up, we're going to let Judy Crane do a little presentation on the power of two, and then we're going to come back and let Judy Johnson, who was the mentee. Is that what
Yes.
you call them?
Yes.
A mentor and a mentee. Okay,
That's it.
got that right.
That's it.
All right.
The power of two.
I hate screwing up on air. Anyway, and I've made it so far with the two Judys. I haven't mixed up anybody's name yet. I may, but anyway. So we're going to let Judy Crane do a little presentation, then let Judy Johnson talk a little bit about what it meant to her and what the interaction means from the stroke survivor's point of view. And we'll open it up to questions and shared experiences. So Judy Crane, go.
Yeah, and I'm just good. I would much rather have questions, than this long presentation here. But I just wanted to give you a little bit about how we even got this going, because I know that that's one of the things that Ralph says a lot of people want to know. And I had the privilege actually of being asked to be on the stroke committee at Anne Arundel Medical Center. And this was a long time ago. It's probably now been about 13 years ago.
Wow.
And they wanted a patient at the table. As I'm sure most of you all know, in a stroke committee, everybody in the hospital that touches a stroke patient is represented there. So it's nursing, it's pharmacy, the ED. I mean, a doctor. There's somebody that's representing it. And they wanted a patient at the table. And I thought, wow, this is great. I was very impressed by that. And I thought, wow, maybe what I say can help other stroke survivors. So, and to basically the way I like to think of it, I actually go into that. I am showing the view from the bed. It's not about me being a medical salesperson beforehand. It's about being a patient in the bed. And so I started there. One of the things that we did at the time in Anne Arundel, we didn't have a stroke support group. So that was one of the first things that that we started. So we had a stroke support group, and we have wonderful therapists that volunteer their time and run that program for us. And during that time, I ended up also being a part of the patient center care council, PFAC they call it, Patient Family Council, something like that. I'm sorry, guys. Aphasia's kicking in. And every year they come up with goals for patient-centered care. And I had been thinking a lot about this peer program. And I kept, every time anyone would say, what goals should we talk about? I was always raising my hand going, what about the peer program? What about a peer program? And I just kept saying it and kept not letting it go until one time they said, we're going to do a peer program, a pilot in stroke. So that was my opportunity. So we started that. And actually, my first stroke mentor is right beside me there. Actually, her name was Carla, and we were like the pilot. Was this going to work or not? And so oddly, of course, as you all know, it did work. And so we were able to start this program over the next, I think maybe about 4 months later.
What was the graphic?
Yeah, isn't that great? I know. I did like that too. I like that too. But just tell you a little bit about the program, and this right now, and this wasn't something that we just came up with. They're actually at in Arundel, they had already had a peer program for breast cancer, and they've had that for many years. And then when I started looking into other areas, University of Michigan, I believe it was, and Stanford, and these people, they had been people that had been doing peer programs, not really so much in stroke, but in other areas, but also national rehab in DC. They had done one for people with aphasia. So this wasn't a new, but it was something that we wanted to build here. So what we did is, and we call it the community stroke mentor. So this is when you remember getting home after rehab. I mean, the hospital rehab, and all of a sudden what's happening now? How are we going to deal with things that you've had to deal with? Me not being able to even write a note from my daughter's school, to give it to her, when she was like, I can't do it. You've got to do it, Mom. And I said, I can't, so all that you go through when you get back. So the community, what we do is we match people together, that the people that are interested in being a part of this. And then the inpatient stroke mentoring, we actually have the opportunity to actually visit patients on the neuro unit. We do that right now every Wednesday afternoon. We go up in and see patients on the unit. And as you know, these are people that have just had strokes. So I'm just going to give you a little bit more. The community one, again, is a one-on-one relationship. There we go. We call them mentee and mentor, which it's kind of hard, especially when you have aphasia. But anyway, but it's really, some people don't want support groups because it's too many people. They kind of would rather do a one-on-one type of thing and be able to, and really just talk about some of the challenges that they have, or just someone to be able to listen to what's going on in their, just to be able to go, yeah, that was happening to me too. So we decided with the support group we have, but we needed a one-on-one type of relationship program. What we do, and this is what's important. Now, you think with Judy and I, we had some connections. Even though I have aphasia and Judy, didn't have aphasia, but when her husband called, she was in sales. I had been in sales. We lived in the same neighborhood. I could walk to her,
It's crazy.
It was. So I was like, I got to be her mentor. But also knowing that too, it's not just about what you can do, but you try to connect people to other people as well, which Judy may talk about that. But anyway, but the matching to me is very important. try to get as much as you can close to somebody, because people have told me in the breast cancer, you know, a young person got matched with an older person, and it wasn't so much of a match because they had different situations. So we try to look at all that. And then what we do is we connect, we, you know, go for walks or coffee or, you know, just talk on the phone. It really, or text, you know, just whatever works for the connection. And the formal relationship can be just, some people just need a couple, you know, yeah, wow, I feel so much better now because I know I'm not the only one out there. But then we go out even a year and over. And what's really neat about a lot of this is that we become good friends. I mean, like Judy and I, you know, kind of a friend now, you know, and that's really, we are building those, a stroke community, which is awesome. I don't really need to tell you the benefits because I think y'all probably all kind of figure that out. But some people say, well, I don't really need that because I've got a wonderful family. You can't even relate. I mean, that's not the same. This is somebody that really understands where, you know, where you are and can relate. And that whole inspiring hope. A lot of people ask, well, how do you get referrals? To be honest with you, therapists are really, really key in the outpatient area, because a lot of times when people are coming out of the hospital, they're not ready for this. They don't even know what they can do and what they can't do, right? I mean, you didn't know half the things that you couldn't do when you actually got home until you got back into your life. And this is where we found was a really great time to kind of you know, get the program or encourage people to start. And this was also looking at other people and how they've done it as well. You know, so we the therapists were key. And then also we also felt once we got someone that wanted to do it, they needed to be introduced by the therapist, the common person between the two, or the stroke coordinator or the stroke mentor coordinator, who's talked with the other one on the phone. Just having that connection. Again, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how we do it. We actually, because we give the Power of Two stroke mentor flyer in the hospital. So that's where, and we kind of plant the seed, if you will, there. And then what we do is actually the stroke coordinator or myself is available to talk to somebody in person or on the phone. And then if somebody is interested in being a mentee, what we do is we send them a questionnaire. Again, this gives us a good information so we go to match somebody. You know, what their hobbies are, you know, do they have aphasia or not? If, you know, were they, again, I'm just trying to think of other people like business owner, you know, I mean, all those things we try to connect people with similar as much as we can. And then, as I said there, you see the first meeting is we usually do the coordinator and the mentee and mentor. So that's just kind of our process in how we do this. I'm a real big believer, again, in trying to connect people that are similar. And that's where we see it's really, it's very successful. And so that's kind of like the community. And then we started seeing patients in the hospital. Actually, actually, we've been doing it about 5 years. There was a volunteer that was a stroke survivor, and he would go in, and then he left. And so we started the stroke mentors, decided that they wanted to go into the hospital. So we have about 5 of us right now that actually rotate going into the hospital on Wednesdays at afternoon. And so what we do there, it's a little different than in the community, because as you know, being in that bed, it was, just trying to deal with you being there. This is right after people have had strokes. The most important thing is to give hope. And so lots of times say, you know what, I was in that bed, so I know how it feels, but I'm standing here in front of you to see where I am now. And talk about the therapies that can help them get better. Just give them that hope. Work hard at these therapies. And you can improve. And then what we do is we hand out the flyer, Power of Two, and then Annapolis support group. And then we also have a aphasia group here in Annapolis called Young Aphasia Communication Club. So if someone, and that young stands for young at heart. And so what we're doing is we're just planting the seed. We're not trying to tell them a lot about the program unless they ask. We just want to say, this is something to take a look at when you get home, because there's a lot they're trying to deal with, right after it, as you all, I'm sure, remember that. So they're just the flyers that we have. So they're the ones that and all the discharge, the patients get these as well. If they have aphasia, they get the support group one there. Now, what we'd like to do is to
wait, can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Is this program only on the East Coast?
Stop. Let me see. I'm sorry. Well, this is in Annapolis.
Very local.
It's a local. We do have some people over in the Eastern Shore, but that's still kind of local. It is, it really is, it's a great program. And, for people that want, these type of programs. And,
So Wendy, here's my interest in the whole thing. I was not involved in this. I got home when she said, you get home, you wonder what to do. You might have noticed me go like this. You look around, you got nobody behind you, you got no support anymore. And, so I'm a big believer in it not because I participated in one, but because I wanted one and it didn't exist. So my whole thing is to try and make this available to more stroke survivors. How to do that? Well, first of all, make some videos about how the program works. And then the other thing would be to see if we could develop some materials that would help the hospitals and make it easier for them, because people will tend to do things if you make it easy for them. If it's difficult and they have to reinvent the wheel, then they're less likely to do it. Speaking of reinventing the wheel, Judy hit on something, which is exactly why I got involved in this when I first found out about another mentor program and then got introduced to Judy. And that was that, after my stroke, I'm almost 15 years out. There was like a heart attack club. That's what they called them in my local town. and they went to the gym and they had meetings at the gym and they walked on the Greenway together. And I was aware of a friend had breast cancer. I was aware they did it in breast cancer as well as heart attack. These seemed to be the two that I knew about. And, so I'm here thinking, like always, everything was stroke. Like, what are we, chopped liver? I mean, why don't we get any of this stuff, So it's back to the cavalry's not coming. If they aren't going to do it for us, then we're going to do it ourselves. And Judy Crane is a fabulous example of that. And so that's why we're here, because I want more and more people to do it. I've been trying to help Halifax Health. I invited Samantha McKay, but she's a stroke coordinator. And as we all know, she's also still a nurse. So as we all know, if you know much about stroke coordinators, that's kind of something they heap on top of you, on top of all your regular job, which was already more than you could do anyway. So she wasn't able to be here today. I would have liked to got her perspective, because I've been trying to help her, connect her with resources and such to put together a program in her hospital system. And I just thought it would be real interesting to have somebody who's been working on it for, about 4, 5, 6 months now. Anyway, I had two things to say. And Judy, I know you got to go, so we'll Judy Johnson has to go in about 20 minutes. So should be plenty of time. I wanted to say two things. One was that, that I'd noticed that it existed. And the other was when I tried to do this, even with I wanted to start with a stroke support group. I did, and we couldn't get anybody to come. So we put ads in the paper, in the community section, everything. Nobody reads it, apparently. Couldn't get anybody to come. So we went to the hospital, who was letting us use their conference room to hold the meetings in, to make up some flyers and just hand it to people and let them know that, like Judy Crane was saying, this is what's available when you get home and you finally go through your papers. I thought it was interesting. It sent me home with a packet. Big fat packet of papers. I got to use this left hand. I can't go through the packet. I mean, how silly is that? But anyway, I ran into HIPAA problems. They wouldn't let us hand out a flyer. They wouldn't let us put up one in the rehab room. They kept saying, I kept going, I don't understand how this is a HIPAA violation. They have to take action. I was taking patients to the same hospital system's physical therapy, and those folks would hand out my phone number to people who ask about why I was in the back and why I was kind of like working with them and that kind of thing. Because sometimes the therapist let me work with the patient that I was taking there, not like a therapist. I got to like wheel the wheelchair or scoot the scooter or hold something, kind of thing. But I ran into a lot of trouble with HIPAA. So that's why this new approach would be to make it easy for hospital systems, get them to do the buy-in right away, because Judy Crane, that's what you had going for you. I mean, they said, let's make up some flyers and put them up on the wall. And I actually worked with a second hospital system here, and they told us the same thing twice. The second time they brought in $200-300 an hour lawyers to tell us why they couldn't do it because of HIPAA. And I just, to this day, I don't understand. If you have to pick up your phone and make a phone call and initiate the whole thing, how is that impinging on your rights as a patient? I don't think it is, but I better get down off my high horse now and let Judy Johnson talk. So Judy, what did this mean to you? And tell us a little bit about some of your and anything anecdotal that you found interesting in your relationship with Judy Crane.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I was still in subacute care when my husband started looking for a support group, and he called Anne Arundel Medical Center, and through Anne Arundel Medical Center, we found Judy Crane and the Power of Two program. So Judy contacted me after I had already gotten home from subacute care. Is that how you remember it, Judy? That's how I remember it.
I actually talked with you when you were in rehab, because my grandson had just gotten born. And I remember that I was in Richmond. I would call you a couple of times we talked when you were still there.
Okay, okay, all
Mhm.
right, all right. And then we got together, I guess, physically after I got home. And honestly, it was perfect timing because you're so overwhelmed in the hospital that, and I know those visits are very brief. It would have been good to have known of the support. Of course, I was in a different hospital, but I was so overwhelmed in the hospital that by the time Judy and I got together, things had settled down a little bit, and it was perfect timing, just perfect timing. So there's no question that the Power of Two program has impacted me as a stroke survivor in many positive ways, but I'll give you three. Number one, encouragement. Judy treated me and made me feel as if I was valued as a human being. Because Judy was a stroke survivor, we had an instant bond. And our communication was very valuable because I knew the support was there, and I knew that she knew and understood what I was going through. Whereas family and friends were doing their best. But Judy understood in a way that no one else did. So that would be number one, encouragement. I had a lot of questions about various resources, and Judy had a lot of answers for me. Number two would be hope for the future. Judy used the word yet a lot. I would complain I couldn't do something. The first word out of her mouth would be yet. There was so much hope wrapped up in that one little word, because I had no idea that word really meant. But now that I'm 17 months past my stroke, I know what that word means, because every day it seems like I can do a little bit more and a little bit more. So that word yet, I still say it to myself, Judy. I still say that word. Well, you can't do it today, Judy, but yet. Yet. So, and then number three was the one-on-one support. I was desperate to talk to people who'd had a similar type stroke as myself. I had a hemorrhagic stroke, and Judy put me in touch with, remember Judy, remember Hal? He was one of the people that I spoke to. He'd lived in Maryland, but he'd since moved to Florida. And we spent, oh my goodness, I think a couple hours on the phone. Ralph, you'll be interested to know that one of the questions I had for Hal was, okay, there must be 10 groups on Facebook. Which one should I join? Because I wasn't going to join 10 groups. And he is the one that told me about Stroke Buddies. And I'm so happy that he did, because that's the only group that I joined. And between Judy Crane and Stroke Buddies, oh my goodness, what a difference they have made in my stroke recovery. The other person, Judy, that you put me in contact with was Jose. And Jose is wearing the BioNest system. And Jose has helped me a lot with tips, because everybody knows I'm trying to walk again. And Jose, like Ralph, has been very helpful with tips.
Yes, you are walking. Yes.
Yes. Well, I'm starting to, let's put it that way.
Don't be so hard on yourself. There are a lot of people who would be happy to be walking like you're walking. So like I've told Winnie a number of times, no matter where you are in your journey, I've also told this to Brooke, because a lot of stroke survivors think they don't have anything to offer. And I don't care where you are on your journey. You may be behind other people, but you are ahead of other people. And other people who you are ahead of look to you in the same way you look to Judy Crane. So everybody out there, remember that. Everybody's got something to offer.
Oh, absolutely.
Very true.
I get off my high horse now.
All right.
Well,
So those three, I would say encouragement, hope for the future, and one-on-one support. And those are things that every stroke survivor needs. And those are things that do not happen in the hospital, unfortunately. So
Well,
I'll get my high horse.
well, and Judy, would you consider being a part of the Power of Two program as a mentor?
Absolutely, I would. I try to contribute as much as I can to stroke buddies and encourage other people and give them hope as well. But Judy, I absolutely would love to be a part of that program. It's something I think about a lot. I'd like to get a little further in my recovery, but absolutely, I would like to be a part of your program. Absolutely.
And
And
that's
Ju-
what
Go ahead.
that's what's so neat about this program. We have mentees like Carla, my first one that you saw at the beginning. Carla is now a stroke mentor, and several of the mentors now. We have about we have 14 of them, and you know, of them have started as stroke as mentees.
I was going to say you knew the answer to that, and you knew she'll make a great one because I could tell from the look on your face there was one loaded. But
Well, I've had my eye on her ever since I met her. I knew she'd
and
be a good
guess
one.
what? One of the things that I try and do is I try and provide those same three things: answers, hope, and encouragement. I messed them up. Sorry, Judy Johnson.
That's okay.
But I try and provide those same things. And one of the things that's also in there, and I think that depends on your person. And I've known it about Judy Johnson for a while. I've actually told her months ago that she'll make a good, what I call pay it forward stroke survivor. When I started Stroke Buddies, I literally thought, you know, there were a couple other groups out there. There weren't as many as there are now, and they weren't as big as they are now. But you know, just like having a stroke, I thought I was like one of the few people doing this, and there are actually quite a few people doing what I do or similar. And I've come to think that at least upwards of half of, at least a third of all stroke survivors can and should end up being what I call pay it forward people, mentors, because it affects us profoundly. And we understand, like, well, in Judy's case, she had, Judy Johnson's case, she had Judy Crane, and she already stated how much a mentor meant to her, not mentor. Sorry about that. So it's obvious that she would understand how other survivors would benefit from her experience. So, you know, one of the other things I try and do is promote this whole idea of paying it forward, because, you know, if they're not, like perspective, they're not going to give it to us, we'll do it for ourselves. Well, how do we do that? We have to build community. We have to encourage people to be mentors. We have to get hospital systems to start mentor programs. So, you know, I'm kind of trying to build a packet of information that we can go to hospitals with. Like, I'd love to be able to get generic versions of some of the documents that the hospitals require. A lot of documents and things to do things. They're very official, they're very legal. You know, whenever anybody ever says, oh, I think it's great, but we'll run it by legal, I go, oh no, what are they going to say? Anyway, if somebody could go in like with a video and a packet of like, not everything you need, but some of the things you need to set up a program, the stroke coordinator at the hospital system is going to be a lot more likely to go to management and say, this is something I want to do, if we can make it easy for them. So that's where I'm coming from on all this. And I'd love to hear questions from people. I know that in a lot of these Zoom meetings, people are hesitant to ask. So anybody out there got anything to say about mentor programs? Been involved in one yourself?
Well, I've been involved in mentor programs and stuff like that. But Judy Johnson, you gave me the best memory out of this whole stroke situation. You said that the stroke department was on the 25th floor. At the hospital I was at, my recovery bed was on the 9th floor, and I had the most amazing view of Mount Washington. I don't know if anybody knows what Mount Washington is, but it's New Hampshire. It's the tallest mountain in New England, and it was
I've
an
climbed it.
amazing view, and it was
I've climbed it.
beautiful.
I've
Beautiful
climbed
time
it
of year.
too. I climbed it.
really?
Tuckerman's,
Yeah, Tuckerman's Ravine.
Tuckerman's Ravine. Yes,
I climbed it too. We climbed at summer camp. I was 11 years old. We climbed the entire presidential range of a 4-day hiking trip.
Nice.
wow.
Yeah, it was all I could do at 11 years old. I was a skinny, scrawny little kid, and I had this like 30-pound pack. It was all I could do to make it to the top of all those. Yeah,
Is
they're
that where you
actually.
live? Abraham, is
I
that where you
live in
live?
Maine. I live in
Okay,
Maine.
Maine.
I live probably, I don't know. I guess it's probably 2 hours from where Mount Washington is, but where the hospital is located, it's about in a town that's about an hour south of me. It's in Portland, but where the hospital is located, I don't think any buildings in Maine are above like 10 stories because of, I think the ground is like mainly shale and you can't build
Well,
skyscrapers.
population, you just don't have that many people that you need the Empire State Building.
Yeah, and that too.
And
But
for
anyhow,
people,
it was tall enough, and it was a beautiful view, and
I
the
bet.
sunset over there every night, every evening, and it was fall, so I mean it was even a more amazing view. But thank you for reminding me of that. I totally forgot. When you said that, I was just like,
something like that will give you hope for the future.
yeah. I mean, that was a long time ago, and it did give me hope for the future.
Well, and those of you who don't know, most of Western Maine on the New Hampshire border, is fairly flat, and the presidential range sticks up a good bit. You can see it for 100 miles or more. So it's not like you have to be like right on top of it to be aware of it. Anybody else got any questions or experiences with the mentor program? Great, Aaron, go.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I randomly saw this like right before it happened today and jumped on. I am 3 months this week post-stroke. And so very much in the thick of it, and it's been horrible. I mean, good and bad and horrible all at the same time. But one thing that I really touched me was the inpatient rehab that I was at. There was a support group that they took me to, which I guess like they usually don't, because they had to check me out, but they realized like how much it would mean to me. And there was a man who came around and spoke to people, and it changed my, it was, he was fully recovered. It had been a while. But the thing that stuck out to me with this too is that I'm 40, he was maybe like 70. So there were things that we could relate about, but like there were many things that it felt like it was so wonderful to talk to someone who had a stroke, because I'd never had before. But moving forward, I felt like I don't know how long this relationship would go, because we just are in different points in our lives. And so I just love that this program, I'm like very much like, how can we get this program everywhere? Like what materials can I bring? Because the first thing I said when I got out of inpatient was, one day I'm going to fully recover and I'm going to come back here and do this.
Another pay it forward stroke survivor.
Yeah.
And so I'm in Jersey. I want to bring it here. Like, I think let's make the power of two, like all over. But I just love what you're doing, and it's just so awesome.
Well, and the thing is, and one things I would just like to say, if your hospital, is to patient-centered care, that's where it's a great place to kind of just go and just kind of see, because I mean, and I need to say their first name, and I'm sorry because I didn't say it before. And I have a hard time with it because I have the aphasia. Luminous
Luminous.
Rundle
yeah.
Medical Center. We have it. That's the name of our hospital, and they are very, very focused on patient-centered care. And so we have all these patient advisors. And so being a patient advisor, you're in there again, talking for the patients on different committees in the hospitals. And that's a great place because it's very, very, a lot of hospitals are focused on it now. So, find that person, or if you don't have that, a stroke coordinator, and start with them. Because they are places to be able to start. But when I was looking at all this, I reached out to hospitals for renal dialysis that they, somebody had one, University of Michigan, I think it was Stanford in California. They had a peer program. They were very willing to share, as long as we gave them, credit for their stuff. And I'm sure, again, be the same thing. Nobody wants to hide this stuff because this is wonderful stuff.
You think that they would cooperate if we tried to make some kind of an effort to roll it out nationally?
Who?
Power of Two, Luminous.
Well, I can, I obviously, can ask.
Well, you can't speak for them. I guess I'm asking for an impression.
Yeah.
And it's like everything in life and everything in the stroke recovery. You get nothing or what you don't ask or try for. So, like my mom used to say, all I can say is no.
Well, no, and I'm sure they'd be, they would be more than happy. I can't speak for them, but I'm sure that they would be willing to share, and the information that we've gotten. I'm sorry, I had a thought and I was gonna, but I'm sorry, kind of forgot it.
Yeah. Remember, it happened to us when we were 20 also.
That's right.
I'm 72, about to be 73. So you start thinking, oh, like I'm just not what you used to do that. You had brain farts when you were 20. I did. Anyway, I'm not trying to not my intention at all to put you on the spot, Judy. Well, now Judy Johnson had to leave and she's left. So now I can just say Judy. And I made it through without screwing up the last name. I'm not trying to in any way put you on the spot, but Aaron brought something up and you kind of indicated, that there was some willingness to share as long as credit was given. I'm a photographer and video guy. We're all about credit. We don't do anything or whatever without permissions. And
well, our paperwork and all that.
Yeah, that would be. That's the missing thing here. I can make the videos, and something like this discussion right here is very powerful for either hospital administrators. Also, it could be clipped. I could edit things out and put together a summation video. So I've got the video component covered. And what I think, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm open to other things, but it seems to me the two components that you would want to walk in a pay it forward type, fully or mostly recovered, might want to go in and start one of these at their local hospital system. Well, if we could arm them with the tools they need to make it more, acceptable and easier and more likely to occur, I think those tools are like an outline of here's the kind of paperwork other hospitals do, and here's a video on how it works and the benefits of it, and so that's where I'm trying to do.
Yeah, they kind of made me the mentor at my rehab facility. I got to talk to all the new patients coming in and talk to them about all their fears and questions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's scary. A lot of people think of things that I didn't even think of. Half the questions I'm like, Well, I never really thought of that. I guess I didn't really dwell on the sour parts of it. I just kind of move forward and hope for the best. And didn't really have any kind of support team. I've had people in and out of my life, like mentor type, but I mean, I never really had like somebody say, do this, this, and this. These are your answers or your key or whatever. Just had to make it up as I went.
A lot of us did.
Yeah, I know.
Well, even with a
And-
mentor, you're still kind of doing that, but it's just somebody there to be able to kind of help you.
And I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to see more and more help for people. Like it's been, almost 30 years now. And like, I don't know. I felt really alone in the process. Like no one around me at my age really understood. So it was just kind of like, suck it up, Rumry. I mean, you can do this. And I did. But it would have been nice to have someone to talk to that understood that was on my level.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I wish that was what I wanted. I was 47 and a mom, and that's what I was reaching for. And just one other thing, just regarding hospitals and stuff like that, all of them have volunteers. Be a volunteer, and because you go through all of the things that they allow volunteers to do, right? So go into and volunteer, and and you're a stroke survivor and a volunteer, and that's going through the hospital, and the way they already have that set up for volunteers, so you don't do anything.
Some make it easy, some make it difficult. It's almost like they don't want volunteers. One of the two local hospital systems, I won't mention which, has a 30-page form for volunteers to fill out. And you have to undergo a background check.
Yes.
Submit a bunch of information about yourself. It's not the simplest thing. I'm not saying any of this to discourage anybody, but it's not like you just don't show up in your candy striper uniform one day. And this is the way hospitals work. This is one of the reasons that, because there's a process, I'm looking to figure out how we can make the process easier for somebody who wants to volunteer. Yeah, it's all going to be volunteer. Hospitals not gonna, they're into reducing costs. They're not into hiring somebody for a mentor program. I'm not delusional. I'm not dreaming. I know this would have to work off of stroke survivor power. And, originally the whole idea, the name Stroke Buddies came from, I was missing this. I knew about it in heart attack and breast cancer, but I couldn't find anything in stroke. And, part of the reason to form Stroke Buddies, before I knew that Facebook wouldn't allow you to search anybody. Like I got 8,100 members, but I can't search any of them by like where they're located, to find somebody to connect people. I happen to know that Sophia and Aaron are both in New Jersey, so maybe I could pick up the spaghetti and throw it against the wall, right now. But other than that, other than the connections that I make, there's no real way to know where people are to put them together. But that was kind of the original idea, was, put people together one-on-one and something similar. So
Can't you go with a questionnaire answer sheet and then visit the patient and present that to them as a way into the hospital?
I wasn't allowed to do that because of HIPAA. And Judy was lucky in it made it a lot easier. Let's put it that way. In that, I forget the exact terminology. They were into patient care. The fact that they were, open to this type of thing made it so much easier.
There are hospitals, and the hospital that I volunteered at patient advisors. That's what they are. And look in your area, because there are lots of hospitals now that are getting, again, more into patient advisors. And patient advisors, it's a volunteer position. And they, I mean, in our situation, they have a pool of people. And so when they're interested in looking at signage at the hospital, just as an example, there'll be a committee of people. We have patient advisors on most of the committees in the hospital, actually, just like I'm on the stroke committee, and that meets once a month. We have other patient advisors that do that. So that's how, and this is, again, listening to what, I mean, I'm not saying you're giving your opinion on things, but it doesn't always mean that everything's going to be done. But what you're doing is you have a seat at the table.
It's funny you use that language, because I'm always saying we don't have a seat at the table. They're not listening to us. One of the things that I want to do is get the stroke, build up numbers in the stroke survivor community to the point that they will no longer be able to ignore us, and we'll get a seat at the table. And Judy, you guys just started, not just, but recently, in terms of a program being existing for 13 years, you started going into the hospitals that used to exist only outside. The first program that I got exposed to, the guy visited, like Aaron was talking about, the guy visited in the hospital setting, but then when people were discharged, that was it. He didn't follow up. It was just him. So there weren't a pool of, I think he said 14 mentors to hook people up with, and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's lacking, and then I found out about the Power of Two, and then I found out the Power of Two was now starting to go into the hospitals. And I really like the idea of that, given that initial contact, because like you said, you go around on Wednesdays, I think you said, and you can stand there looking at them. And when you're laying in that bed, well, everybody here knows what it's like to lay in that bed and wonder what the hell is going to happen to me. And so to see somebody standing, yeah, that's a big deal. Standing, I always make a point, it's obvious, but I'll say, I walked in here, I used to go back to the stroke group in my rehab hospital with the inpatients Tuesday and Thursday when I had appointments and things to do in Asheville. I always coordinated them so I could be free to go over at 2 o'clock to the stroke group, because I felt it was very powerful for me sitting in that stroke group to watch the first pay it forward stroke survivor I ever encountered walk in and share his experience with us. So maybe that's what, I never made that connection before, but maybe that's what got me going on all this. Actually, I was going on it all from the get-go, because I had two of my friends tell me that I was talking about helping people while I was still in the rehab hospital. And I told them both, don't recall it at all, like Judy didn't recall your first conversation. I said, but it sounds like me, doesn't it? And so I totally believe them. So, how do we get one in New Jersey for Aaron? That's the question. So that's the big question right now. I mean, I mean that in terms of the big question. I also mean that, specifically, because, Aaron sounds to me like she's maybe a newly minted stroke survivor, but I think she's got that pay it forward aspect to her. Anybody who's empathetic has to want to help the next guy. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. It'd be wonderful to see this kind of program everywhere. Actually, another place that had a stroke one, actually, I remember talking to, I haven't talked to them in a really long time, but it was Hershey.
Okay.
In Pennsylvania, that hospital, I forgot the name of the hospital, but I remember they had somebody too.
Maryland. New Jersey, Hershey, we've got like a little triangle going here. Just saying.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Believe me, if you would like to reach out, are more than happy to talk to you about it. You know.
Well, I'm trying to lasso Aaron into this whole movement that I don't really have going. I alternately say I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know what I'm doing. I just keep pushing on the elephant. That's just like stroke recovery. You just keep pushing on the immovable object, don't you? So, I'm willing to do that. I've got a lot of things going on, but I think this is real important. And I'm also trying to get to where I don't have to do as much of the routine stuff. That's going to depend on me getting some volunteers, and may not, I don't know, between Thanksgiving and Christmas is a good time, may start that effort next year. But I do a lot of stuff that other people could do in terms of getting this meeting out. Like if I had a graphics person and a writer and a couple people who would volunteer, then I could spend more time on the project type stuff, implementing an idea like this and various things. So I won't put Erin on the spot because I already know she's in. I can tell. So,
Right. Well,
anybody else?
yes, and unfortunately I've got to get back.
Yeah,
to my,
well, that's what I was trying to respect your time as well. I know that you had something after this. I didn't know when it was, like 1:30, which is now. So what can I say?
Mhm.
But thank you for who you are, for
Absolutely.
what you did with this Power 2 program,
Mhm.
for coming on and sharing your experience with us, and for being willing to see if we can't make this thing have bigger legs and walk around the whole country.
Mhm. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it sounds.
I don't have anything better to do. I don't think there is anything better to do than help other people. And I bet you Judy Crane, I bet you Judy would agree with me.
Exactly.
It's a very personally rewarding, isn't it, Judy?
Yes. Oh, it is. It is. The mentors get just as much out of it as the mentees, to be honest with you, do.
Yeah. The prayer of St. Francis. It is in giving that we receive. You're listening to all this, aren't you, Aaron? I'm just teasing. You don't know me well enough. I'm kind of sarcastic and I tease people. I was teasing Sophia before we started recording, but I said, I know her well enough. I don't know you well enough, but I mean no harm. I'm just trying to rope anybody I can into the, different kind of thinking about stroke recovery and what they can do when they get better, and what they can do while they're getting better.
You definitely need champions to get this going.
Yeah, I can't believe. So I use the word champions all the time in every group. This group needs a champion because things don't work without champions. So, Aaron, if you're interested and you want to be a champion of something, we've got a group called Stroke Ambassadors already. That's how I met Judy. It was an amazing coincidence because somebody came in and put a comment in there, and I saw the comment because I actually go through everything, make sure everything is good, and you never know what you're going to find. So just by the stroke of whatever, the universe put Judy and I together, and I got to think there's maybe some reason behind it. And so when I feel that way, I'm going to push on the elephant. So we have that group. If you want to reach out to me through Messenger, Aaron, or through Stroke Buddies, I'd be glad to send you a link to that group and everything. And hey, I'm not trying to push you either. You seemed interested. I don't know, in 4 months where you're at in your recovery. I'm also happy to help you and coach you. I've coached Judy Johnson for almost a year now. She, not me, she maybe used my method and some of my encouragement and things. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm a stroke survivor, but I've learned everything I can over the last 13, 14 years. So I'm willing to help you, as well as like push you into something that you may or may not want to be involved in. So, reach out, join the group because, well, Judy says it best because she's a member and it's my group, so I don't have any credibility, but I do run another group with, she disappeared. Okay. Anyway, I do run another group with 12,000 members, and Stroke Buddies has 8. I do a survey or ask a question in Stroke Buddies. One time I got 32 answers in Stroke Buddies, all of them on subject. In the other group with 50% more members, I got 2 comments and 1 was off topic. So there's more of a community going on. Judy will tell you that it's all about building community. That's how these things work. So hope I didn't scare Aaron away. Anyway, so thank you, Judy.
Thank everybody. It was wonderful being here with you all.
We appreciate you.
Alrighty.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.